Welcome into the 49ers Report by Chat Sports. I'm your host, Chase Senior. Coming up on today's show, a 49ers postgame show as once again San Francisco falls to the Seattle Seahawks. I hate to say this, but I have to say it. The Seattle Seahawks own the San Francisco 49ers. They have won the last 15 of 17 games in this rivalry, which really isn't a rivalry. Losses aren't fun to talk about either, but we have to break it down here on today's show. Final score, 30-23, evening up the 49ers record at 6-6 on the year. There were so many opportunities for the 49ers to be victorious in this game. They give up a 73-yard fake punt for a touchdown on the opening drive of the game. They turn the football over 3 times. Jimmy Garoppolo was sacked for a safety. They had so many chances to put the Seahawks away and really put the dagger in Seattle to end their 2021 campaign and maybe in doing so end the Russell Wilson-Pete Carroll dynamic. Instead, the Niners now 6-6 on the year, and they were once firmly entrenched in the NFC playoff picture, but after Sunday's slate of games, the NFC playoff picture, folks, has become a lot more interesting. The Arizona Cardinals with a really impressive win with Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins back in the lineup, taking down the Chicago Bears on the road to move their record to 10-2 on the year. I think the Green Bay Packers are better than Arizona. They won that head-to-head matchup earlier on in the year. Tampa Bay Buccaneers take down the Atlanta Falcons to push their record to 9-3. Not really a big buyer in the Dallas Cowboys at 8-4, but really that's when the NFC starts to get very, very interesting. The 49ers were once in the place of the Washington football team, but how about the WFT, the Washington football team, going on the road against the Las Vegas Raiders to come up with a win? They move ahead of San Francisco in 6th place in the NFC. San Francisco drops back to 6-6, but the Eagles win, which really makes things interesting as well. Vikings fall to the Detroit Lions. They go to 5-7 on the year, but man, very, very frustrating loss for the 49ers, and we're going to continue to break this defeat down. But first, let me know, are the 49ers going to make the playoffs now with the 6-6 record? They go on the road next week to take on a Cincinnati Bengals team that suffered a bad defeat to the Los Angeles Chargers. They made a little bit of a comeback effort there, but the Bengals go down. Now they're at home taking on the Niners, a team that's going on the road once again for the second consecutive week. This is not an easy slate for San Francisco, and they find themselves in a very precarious situation. But will the 49ers make the playoffs? Type Y for yes, type N for no. This is going to be the pinned comment, so if you get hit with that YouTube ad break, scroll on down and get your votes in. It really is quite unbelievable how well Seattle has fared over the 49ers over time, and really since Russell Wilson came into the league. I mean, we're talking about 15 wins of the last 17 matchups going in favor of Seattle. And this really reminds me a lot of the mental advantage that the Alabama Crimson Tide have over the Georgia Bulldogs, where there are cobwebs in the closet that Georgia cannot knock down and get rid of. There are demons hanging up in the rafters. San Francisco cannot get rid of those demons, and Seattle with Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll just continue to own this franchise. Here were my keys to the game going into this matchup that I had broken down during our 49ers Seahawks preview. Had to win the turnover battle. During the 3-game winning streak, the Niners had done that 6-1. They didn't do that today. They gave the Seahawks life by turning the football over 3 times. That punt return for a touchdown. They were bad on special teams. They took that safety. Had to win the turnover battle. They didn't. They gave the Seahawks life in doing so. They had to survive without Deebo Samuel, and I thought they were able to do that today because one of my big keys to the game, target George Kittle. He had to have a breakout game. He was fabulous, but he was one of the only offensive players who was actually great and rose up to the occasion today. 49ers also had to run the hell out of the football. Seahawks run defense did very well, and 49ers had to avoid the Russell Wilson magic. They didn't do so because Russ, when he needed to, was able to make plays. Those were my keys to the game that had to come to fruition for the 49ers to come through with the win. They didn't do that, and I'll show you what actually happened after we tell you about today's deal, thanks to our friends at Fanatics. It's the holiday season. Hook yourself up. Hook somebody up who you care about, family member, girlfriend, boyfriend, significant other, whatever, with this fresh 49ers t-shirt. Right now, if you use that link down below, chatsports.com/49ers you get 50% off, only if you use that link. This is a shirt, really good material, fresh 49ers logo that was $28. It's on sale for $14, only if you use that link down below, chatsports.com/49ers. I'll throw that link in the description as well as the comment section of this video. As for my takeaways for this game, moving off of what my big keys to the game were, so many people are going to blame the refs, and yeah, there were some questionable calls all throughout this game, but the 49ers didn't really do anything to win themselves this ball game. In fact, I thought they gave this game away. So if you want to blame the refs, you can. Was Trent Sherfield held on that third down approaching the goal line? Potentially. But the game didn't come down to just that. There were so many things that happened leading up to that were to blame for this 49ers loss. 3 turnovers, a safety in the end zone, bad penalties at inopportune times, and the fake punt on the opening drive of the game when you thought you had Seattle going 3 and out to start the ball game, and instead 73 yards to the crib. That really set the momentum and set the tone right from Jump Street. This rivalry, which isn't really a rivalry anymore, as I mentioned earlier, reminds me of Georgia-Alabama. Georgia cannot overcome the mental hurdles that it takes to take down Alabama. You saw that during the SEC championship game on Saturday, and that's what you've seen happen with this 49ers-Seahawks matchup. Every time these two teams play, we get to see a really, really exciting game. But every time we watch these two teams play, it's Seattle coming through with a back-breaking L, serving it up on a fat dish for San Francisco. Jimmy Garoppolo has been great over the last several weeks. Today, we got bad Jimmy Garoppolo. A couple of really bad picks where his reads were off. That first interception, Bobby Wagner totally faked him out. He faked the blitz, went back in coverage, and Jimmy Garoppolo didn't see him. Tried to attempt a pass for Trent Sherfield. It was a bad pass to begin with. He also got faked out by bad Bobby Wagner. And right now, the season gets tough. The NFC playoff picture is so tightly packed, like an air-sealed bag, right? There are so many teams in the mix right now in the NFC. And with a win today, San Francisco would have pushed the record to 7-5. They would have been sitting pretty. Now they suffer a loss, they drop down to 6-6, and you have to go on the road, go into the Midwest, which isn't an easy trip, and take on a Cincinnati Bengals team that has been frisky this year. They went on the road and took down the Baltimore Ravens earlier this year. And while they've suffered some pretty ugly losses, they're a really good team. Joe Burrow's really good. They have some offensive skill players. Not going to be an easy game against the Cincinnati Bengals, and the 49ers had everything in their grasp. If they won this game, now they've opened up the window for other teams to overtake them in the NFC playoff hunt. Grade the 49ers performance for me in this game. A, B, C, D, or F. We were doing the watch party. A lot of people were fired up about this loss. I'm giving them a C, maybe even a D. You speak up, you sound off in the comment section right now. I talk about Jimmy Garoppolo being bad today, and he was. You look at the final numbers, he almost led the team down 90-plus yards to potentially tie that game with 7 points late in the game. Instead, that ball gets batted away, which was just another dagger in the heart. You cannot turn the football over like Jimmy G did today, and you cannot play like he did against the Seahawks, especially when there was so much at stake. The final numbers for him, 20 of 30, 299 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 picks. And those interceptions, those bad plays, they give a bad team life. And that was one of my other keys to the game, was you can just not afford to give a bad football team an opportunity to come back and bite your ass. You cannot give a bad opportunity life, and that's what San Francisco did with the Seahawks, who moved their record to 4-8 on the year. As for George Kittle, one of the only players on the offensive side of the ball who actually deserves credit. George Kittle was incredibly dominant. He looked like the tight end who the 49ers paid big bucks to. He was great in the ground game, great in the pass game. Kyle Shanahan saying after the game they tried to target him on all 3 plays at the goal line to try to tie that ball game up. Seattle took him away. Easy to see why. Because among the receivers, nobody else did really anything to pose a threat to the Seahawks defense outside of George Kittle. Brandon Ayuk didn't step up. Juwan Jennings didn't do shit. Trent Sherfield dropped a couple of passes and had some really bad penalties. George Kittle, one of the only guys who actually rose up to the occasion. Nick Bosa on the defensive side of the ball was great. So too was Azeez Al-Shire. Josh Norman was getting cooked in coverage. This is just why it's such a frustrating loss for San Francisco. Injury update, too, by the way, as we're recording this just after the game. Trenton Cannon, on the opening kickoff, trying to make a tackle, was taken off the field by ambulance. Kyle Shanahan, during his post-game press conference, saying it was a concussion, but in terms of the severity of that injury, not expected to be overly serious. When a situation like that happens, you're thinking, oh my gosh, is the worst going to happen? Looks as though that's not going to be the case. Just a concussion for Trenton Cannon. Our continued prayers and hopes up for him and his family. Your one-word reaction to this loss. My one-word reaction, really just frustrating. Let me know, though, in the comment section down below. And during our watch party, we were able to join and welcome in a couple more 100 subscribers to the 49ers Report as we continue to grow like crazy. 45,670 deep. Free daily videos, post-game shows, therapy sessions following these losses. We do it all here on the channel. Subscribe. Thanks for watching.